What's up, guys? I'm Nera, doing a big on basics on the bench press. This is my approach to the bench press. There's no right or wrong way. There's many different ways to skin a cat. So you just got to kind of take the concepts that you find valuable and add them to your own. Be sure to check out Dan Green's basics video on the bench, Garrett Gunn's Griffin, and Milanichev did one as well. So check those out and you know, absorb what's useful, discard what isn't. A really important thing is how we set our shoulders up. In the past, I used to always think about breaking the bar or tucking the elbows in. And what I found was that was causing me to touch really low. I was trying to get those lats to really get involved in the lift. But I noticed I wasn't feeling as much of a stretch in my pecs. I was touching really low. Sometimes I'd often go too low, and then I wouldn't be able to get power out. It'd be hard to try and track back up. Or sometimes I would notice, because my elbows are so tucked, that unless my wrist was like this, then it'd feel like I was losing the bar forward with my wrist going like that. So I want to feel that stretch in my pecs, because a stretched muscle is an activated muscle. So when I do this now, instead of turning at the hand, you know, turning at the hand like bending the bar or tucking the elbows in, I think of doing it at the shoulders. It's like screwing your shoulder into place. So you can think of either going down and then screwing it in like that, or you can just imagine someone is taking your arm and trying to shove it back, like they're taking your fist, twisting and shoving it back, okay? And then from this point, you'll notice that your elbow tracks a little bit differently. So now my elbow isn't gonna flare out. If my shoulder turns this little bit, now my elbow is gonna flare down and out to the side like that. So we're still gonna get a nice stretch here. So this is something that I've started doing about a half year ago, and it's made a really big difference in my bench press. So going from here, knowing that everything's locked in, when you grab the bar, what you're gonna notice is, as you're lowering it, if your forearm doesn't stay vertical to the ground, you're gonna notice it doesn't feel as strong. So you're having power leakages at that point, meaning if I'm lowering it and my arm is too far in like this, that's a power leakage with the tricep. I'm not gonna have as much transference out of my chest coming off the chest like this. So what we really wanna make sure is that that forearm, when you touch the chest, that it is at least vertical, if not out just a little bit, okay? Some guys can get away with being in and having their elbows flare like this, but these are guys who are extremely strong, and they have very strong lockouts that rely on their triceps. What you notice is some lifters, they will go against this, and it's because either A, in training, they're trying to fix a weakness. So if someone is very weak off the chest, they might practice a little bit wider, or if they're weak with the triceps, they might practice a little bit closer. Or when they're doing their competition style lift, they go a little bit narrower because your triceps are that strong. I need to have my chest to generate speed, and with that momentum, then I can press through my lockout. Whereas if I were to go narrower, then I wouldn't have as much speed here, and it'd be a very tough press for me because my triceps aren't as strong. When it comes to leg drive is one of the most important things. So we have the bar and your shoulders planted, your shoulders are planted into the bench. This is, you know, the primary thing that's happening. But, you know, secondary, getting this body to help, getting everything tight is obviously a very important thing. So when we're driving with the legs, I like to think about driving the body that way. It's like, if we're taking this, I'm not trying to drive my hips up, I'm trying to drive my shoulders into the bench, okay? I'm trying to drive them down, okay? If you have an extremely slippery bench like this one, because this is very slippery, you can put a yoga mat on top. Usually good benches or, you know, competition benches won't be quite this slippery. So that's definitely one thing to do. But like I said, we're trying to get that drive to go back into the shoulders, because that reinforces getting these shoulders back and tight. It reinforces that. It pushes force down into the floor or into the bench. But what we're really trying to do at that point now is we're driving this way. If you picture a piece of bamboo, okay, so you have a stick of bamboo, and one is wedged into the bench right here, and the legs are pushing that way. Boom. It causes a bend, right? There's a lot of tension now in this piece of bamboo because it's got that bend. So when the bar is going to lower, it's a little bit more force. It's going to help with a little bit more speed. So when you're driving that, keep thinking of creating that tension and being as tight as you possibly can. When we're unracking it, so when you unrack it, a big thing that's made, two things that have made a big difference for me are squeezing the bar as hard as you can, okay? So never like grab it like a sissy and just let it rest on your hand, because then everything's gonna get flimsy. So grab it like a man, you know, grab it like you mean it, and then that'll get everything a little bit more tense, okay? So that's very important. When we're unracking it, instead of lifting it off, okay, instead of lifting it off, just with my shoulders, like pushing away like this, the better way to visualize it is that you're driving your shoulders. So it's like the bar is here and you're trying to push your shoulders, push yourself back. That way your shoulders don't move, okay? So you're just trying to get away. That helps reinforce everything being tight. Now, one of the big things, this is probably the thing that has made the biggest change in my bench press, is when I unrack it, I make sure I get extra tight, maximally tight, by lifting my butt off the bench as I unrack it, and then just placing it down even closer to my shoulders. So I put this yoga mat down so I wouldn't slide as much. So a big thing is when we're setting up here, okay, I want to make sure everything's nice and tight, okay? So I like to put my feet up, I set my shoulders up, I'm screwing everything in, okay? I put one foot down at a time to make sure I can get nice and far back. Okay? And now, when I unrack it, I'm gonna take my big breath in, and I'm gonna press and lift my butt up, and then I'm gonna put it back down just enough so it's touching. From here, I have maximal tension. I mentioned taking a big breath in. Garrett Gunn said it in his, it's who I took it from, who made the change for me. And he talks about taking one breath. So we're here, we don't unrack it. Exhale, take a couple breaths and then breathe in again, because then we can lose some tightness. So instead, you take one big breath in, and then do your set from there. If I'm doing a multiple rep set, I'm gonna hold my breath for 4 or 5 reps before I take another breath in. With the feet placement, so like I said, the most important thing with the leg drive is that we're driving everything back that way. So if we tuck our feet too far back, then it's more like I'm trying to kick my legs straight into the ground. And from this point, I'm not really getting my shoulders into it as hard as I could. Whereas if I move my feet forward, now I can push back a little bit better. Now I have more tension throughout my body. And that's what we want, is tension, right? You don't want holding that position to be your back doing all the work and then just your legs trying to arc around. So if you put your feet a little bit far forward, then you can push back. And that's really gonna make sure that you have that desired tension. So to kind of reiterate that point is, I prefer to have my feet closer to being flat on the ground than a tucked position on the toes. One thing that we'll find is if you have trouble getting those heels down or you don't like your position, if you widen your stance, you know, that'll actually help you get that butt onto the bench. Sometimes if you're too narrow and you're trying to push back, your butt comes off the bench, and then you just widen it a little bit, or you add a little bit of a flare to your feet, and then all of a sudden, everything kind of sets up a little bit nicer. With getting this arch, before I bench, just one thing I forgot to mention is a big stretch that I always do, which is just like a version of the couch stretch. Yeah, so I just find an incline bench press and put one foot on it like this. Get the body straight line here, pushing the hip towards the floor, and then I start bringing it back. Okay, you're gonna feel a full stretch here. Okay, so I'm straight here. I'm not broken at the hip like this, okay? Because we gotta have that hip fully extended when we're bench pressing. Then we come up, there. And now from here, I feel that stretch here. This is gonna help my bench press out a lot. This is gonna make that arch uninhibited, okay? Because your hips are tight, then your lower back has to make up for it. And the last thing you want is your lower back cramping up while you're bench pressing. And also that's gonna affect your deadlift later on in the competition. So grab the bar, squeezing the bar nice and firm. Get my hips up. All right, now I'm screwing my shoulders into place so they're locked up. Getting my nose, mouth roughly under the bar. Now I'm gonna reach for the ground 1 foot at a time. Get my feet set, finding a position that feels good to keep my butt down. All right, I have it. So now I'm just gonna take that big breath in. I'm gonna lift my glutes off, raise my hips. Put the hips back down so they're touching the bench. And now I just press. All right, so that was big on the basics with Nera on the bench press. And I hope you guys learned some valuable concepts with tools to help you out with your bench.